that. Well, so what? Does it mean that the atomic bomb is going to stop working because you don't believe in Einstein's theory? Huh? Does it mean that, you know, all of a sudden all the laws of the universe are going to change to accommodate your ignorance? No. So just because somebody doesn't believe in a particular understanding or knowledge, it doesn't make it untrue. It may be more advanced than their intelligence can grasp, but that's another thing. So anyway, those who are in illusion about the spiritual identity of the supreme absolute truth, they're called svarūpa-bhrama. Then there's sadhya sadhana tattva-bhrama. Illusion about sadhana bhakti, the means of spiritual perfection, and sadhya, the object to attain, to be attained by such sadhana, or in other words, prema bhakti. Now this is a real problem. We see around the world there are so many religions, so many spiritual paths, so many schools. And even within our own lineage, there are so many organizations, so many devotees, and so many teachers and gurus and stuff like that. But very, very few of them, only the lineage holders, can explain the complete science of the absolute truth. Just as a test, if you have access to some other guru or spiritual teacher or church or something like that, just ask them to explain what we talked about earlier today about consciousness. What is consciousness? How does consciousness work? Why is consciousness so important? Etc., etc., etc. The odds are none of them can explain it. We certainly never heard any explanation of consciousness when we were in ISKCON, for example. Yet, the second chapter of the Bhagavad-gītā, the first thing that Krishna tells Arjuna is he starts talking about consciousness. As soon as Arjuna accepts Krishna as his guru and says, okay, Krishna, you help me solve my problem. What's the first thing that Krishna tells Arjuna? First of all, he tells him, you're in the wrong consciousness. He says, you're lamenting over the things that are not worthy of grief. You're in the wrong consciousness. And then he proceeds to describe the correct consciousness, that everything which is material is temporary and does not therefore really exist in the full sense of the word, and everything that is spiritual is eternal and therefore fully real. So a person who is actually in knowledge cares only for the eternal and not for the temporary. That's the first thing, the first instruction that Krishna gives to Arjuna. The very first thing. Yet, how many spiritual teachers can explain this nicely? Well, maybe they can quote from the book, but I mean really explain it according to their own intelligence. Very, very few. Very few. So, because the process of devotional service, the process of spiritual advancement, is all based on this truth. That's why Krishna gives it the first thing, because everything else is based on it. So if you don't get that, if you don't understand that, how are you going to understand the rest of the spiritual path? How are you going to understand the mechanism of spiritual advancement if you don't understand consciousness? See? So most spiritual teachers are basing their whole teaching on a very shaky platform. They expect us to simply accept this explanation without being given any reasons or arguments or deeper explanation. And then they want to go on from there. You see? But the whole thing is built on a very shaky platform because they have not understood the fundamentals. Just like if I'm a musician and I don't want to practice my scales. Oh, it's boring. Da 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 da. Da, 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 da. You know, I don't want to do that. I don't want to practice my scales. It's too much trouble. I want to play Rachmaninoff's third concerto. Well, come on. You're never going to get through Rachmaninoff if you can't play your scales. Isn't it? So it's like that with these spiritual teachers. They don't want to spend time on the fundamentals about consciousness, about the spirit soul, about the Lord, about the nature of the universe, and so on and so on and so on. The energies and like that. But they want to be known as a big authority on spiritual life and about devotional service, and that they're so advanced, blah, 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 blah. But they never explain the fundamentals. Because they don't know the fundamentals. And if you inquire, you will find out. They don't know. So if they don't know the fundamentals, how can they explain the more advanced teachings? See? Everybody wants to talk about love of Godhead and Radha Krishna Nitya Leela and all this advanced stuff. Oh yes, we're more advanced. But if you ask them to explain the beginning stuff, they can't explain it. Well, what's going on there? That means they're suffering from this particular anartha, that they don't understand the actual path. They can't explain the underlying mechanism, how consciousness operates by the sum total of impressions in the mind. And that if we take in only material impressions, we're going to have material consciousness. Therefore, we chant again and again and again and again. And we do the arti ceremony, and we look at the form of the Lord again and again and again and again, every day, every day, every day, day after day after day. Why do we do it over and over and over and over? To create more and more spiritual impressions, to counteract the material impressions in the mind. It's very simple. But how many people can explain that? How many teachers know that? How many have actually analyzed consciousness properly? So if you don't know how the path of devotional service is working, if you went to a mechanic and you had a problem with your car, and you say, yeah, you know, it's making a funny noise. And he would open up the hood and look around and say, well, you know, it must be the squirrel cage. That's it. It's the squirrel cage is off. Yeah, I'll have to replace that. Well, the guy doesn't know anything about how a car engine works. He thinks there's a little squirrel running around and making it. You know, this is an extreme example. But, you know, if the guy doesn't know, just like, well, we've had this experience here in Chile, taking the truck to a mechanic, and something's wrong and it's making a funny noise or whatever. What was it? The lights didn't work, right? And he says, oh, you're going to have to replace the steering wheel. Really? This happened? So, I think we want to go talk to the other mechanic down the street. Bye. So, you know, it's the same with spiritual teachings. If they don't have any idea how consciousness works, if they don't have any idea how the mind works, how are they going to guide us in the spiritual path, especially in the higher ranges of the spiritual path? So we shouldn't accept this. And finally, Maya Tattva Brahma, illusion about the Lord's external energy, Maya. Well, what is Maya? Maya means literally that which does not exist. And we spoke about that earlier, how things that are temporary don't really exist in the full sense of the term because they have a beginning and an end. That means they are dependent on some previous cause. See? So things that are dependent on a previous cause cannot be said to have real existence or complete existence because their existence is depending on some previous existence. You see? And if we look at that cause, we generally find that that is also an effect of another previous cause, and so on, back. But the original cause is Krishna. Krishna is known as Satchit Ananda Vigraha, Anadir Adir Govinda, Sarva Karana Karanam. Ishvara-parama, Krishna, Satchit Ananda Vigraha. That means that Krishna is the supreme controller. His form is eternal, full of complete knowledge and bliss. He is the cause of all other causes. Sarva Karana Karanam. So he has complete existence. Existence in the full sense of the word. And everything else is his energy. Well, he has two main classes of energy, his internal spiritual energies and his external material energies. The internal energies are eternal and the external energies are temporary. So whenever we see something in this material world, no matter what it is, it has a beginning and an end. Therefore, it is not real in the full sense of the term. Its reality is derivative or relative to some other reality which ultimately goes back to Krishna. So Krishna's external potency is more or less illusory. It's an illusion. Just like when we go out in the desert and we see what looks like